Oh man. Oh, it's good shit.
All right. Well, everything looks good. Everything looks good. It's kind of the first rough, really rough take of what I hope to eventually be my podcast. So yeah, I don't really know exactly what the long term kind of goal and that kind of stuff will be. What exactly will be centered around. If it'll be a niche, kind of leaving it more in the open right now to see what'll, how things are gonna take off, how it'll go. But yeah, anyway, just kind of dive right in. So this first thing I kind of want to talk about is called CRISPR. So it's fucking ridiculous. So I don't know if you've heard of it before. It's spelled CRISPR. People in the science community and their kind of obsession with naming, like giving their new technology or their new theories or whatever very fancy acronyms that all have like weird name or word sounding names. I don't know, but this one's actually kind of cool. CRISPR. It sounds like a brand of chip. Like just Lay's would have like Lay's CRISPR. Or like CRISPR is the knock off Lay's. It's like that no brand. It's half the price. Just as the exact same recipe or whatever. Probably like twice as much salt though. I don't know why crap. It's like something will be the knockoff brand of something will be much cheaper, but it'll have a crap ton more like sugar or corn syrup or salt or something. It's like, well, like if you're trying to be cheap, why'd you fill it up? Like you could have been cheaper and technically healthier, or did they just do that because it's like I don't know, makes it look like it's more calorie dense for those that want to make sure that Twinkies fit into their nutritional diet or whatever. But yeah, anyway, so this thing called CRISPR, it's crazy. So essentially, it I guess originated uh, in the war between viruses and bacteria. I guess it's like it's kind of complicated. I'm not an expert on this at all, but I've kind of been following its progression. It's been, I don't know, in development for a while. Like, I'm seeing here that they won a award for like, or they at least got um nominated for like Breakthrough of the Year in 2015. And they were working on it for a while before that. But anyway, it's crazy. So essentially, it's like viruses will attack bacteria. If the bacteria survives the attack, it'll essentially keep a small part of the it's like the structure of DNA from the virus that attacked it. It's almost like just a record of like, okay, this is the motherfucker that almost tried to kill me. And essentially it's used for them to like identify them the next time around. It's like if they come back and they get attacked by or if another virus, because obviously that one got fucked up by this badass bacteria. If another virus comes around and it's like, okay, I'm gonna attack you. You look pretty vulnerable and shit. And this bacteria is gonna be like, wait, I know you because your DNA matches this snippet of DNA that I have. And essentially, it will have known what it did to defeat or to survive the attack from the last virus, and it can now use its, and this gets a little bit kind of more complicated, but essentially will use that snippet it has as a part of its defense for any future bacteria that are the same. It's really crazy. But what's really crazy about it is that essentially this bacteria has a tool that can very accurately cut out, and I think this is kind of a part of the defense that it has. It can cut out the part of the DNA in the virus that's a threat to it, and extremely accurately. And obviously we've been kind of messing around with DNA stuff in science in general for a while, but it's been pretty rough, you could say. It has never been like a kind of accurate way to do stuff. I'll kind of get into my understanding of how the whole like DNA and editing stuff works in a second, but this freaking bacteria figured it out ages ago, and they have like very, very accurate editing or DNA editing as a defense mechanism for these viruses. So we, observed this. We figured out the tool or the mechanism they were using to do this, and we, as we do with a lot of stuff, we kind of pulled it out and tried to figure out how we could reverse engineer it to use it for our own usage. And I remember watching a video, I don't know when it was, maybe like in 2015 when they got this award, but they were talking about how, everyone's favorite fucking insect, the mosquitoes. They were talking about how, mosquitoes are responsible for transmitting stuff like malaria. They're responsible for transmitting stuff, like West Nile, I believe it is. Like they're just annoying as fuck. So there's like no one likes mosquitoes, so we wouldn't mind just completely wipe out mosquitoes, right? But it's not really how things work, because everything on the planet is relatively connected, right? It's an ecosystem. So you just get rid of mosquitoes, and the things that fed on mosquitoes, that need mosquitoes to survive, you're gonna affect them, and who knows what that can kind of spiral into, what long-term like tragic effects you can have because of that. So you don't want to just like wipe out mosquitoes, and as much as we'd all, nobody would miss them except the people that need them for food. So it's like what we found out a way to do is essentially engineer a way so that the virus in the mosquitoes is, or it's like we kind of change the DNA in these mosquitoes so that they're no longer able to host this like West Nile disease and malaria and stuff like that. So effectively, they become clean of this disease, like clean mosquitoes, which still mosquitoes. It's not much better, but hey, they don't fucking kill you. So I mean, it's at least a step up from. We're getting there. So what is also crazy though is that, because kind of how this whole thing works, right? Is that you release these mosquitoes out in the wild, great. They mate with mosquitoes, but those mosquitoes have genes that do allow them, or these viruses, to survive, while the ones we released out don't. But when they both mate, there's only like kind of a 50% chance the offspring get it. So essentially you have the next generation where only 50% of them have this resistance, 50% don't. The next generation, only 25% do, and it keeps going down and down until eventually, and mosquitoes, because their lifespans are so short and their reproduction cycle so quick, literally within, no time at all, you're back to the same ridiculous mosquitoes, or the same virus hosting mosquitoes. So what made CRISPR what took CRISPR kind of to the next level is something called the gene drive. And effectively what the gene drive is a way to ensure that when two, say, mosquitoes mate, the gene that you want, or the genes that you want, are passed on to the offspring with 100% chance. Sounds ridiculous, but it's literally the perfect fit for it. So with CRISPR and this gene drive, we're essentially able to ensure that every generation of mosquitoes would have this resistance to these viruses, which is crazy. Why haven't we done this already? Like, these mosquitoes existed in like 2015, I believe it is, or sometime around there, and like they've been in a lab. It works already. Like, they've done this, and over the course of generations, they tested in the lab. 100% of the last generation mosquitoes had this resistance. Well, basically, we just don't know exactly what other side effects turning off these genes might have had, right? That's the problem with gene editing, is that the way I look at it, right, is it's essentially like if you were programming, right? And you have, or this is a program that you're using, and you have basically no clue how it works, but you do have access to its programming code. So you can, in theory, kind of change it, edit it, move stuff around, except you have no idea what language it's in. It's in some really weird ass language with like only 4 letters, but these 4 letters are combined in tons of different complex ways and chains to essentially make this crazy program, this crazy complex program that you're working with. And now it's kind of like CRISPR is essentially our way to edit, or it's like we finally are able to have a rudimentary, or actually kind of decent by kind of how they describe it and where it's come so far, editing tool for this software. Except that again, you have no idea what the hell this language is. You're literally learning it by trial and error. And anyone that's actually kind of done any programming and stuff like that will know that, if you're taking over programming for, excuse me, if you're taking over programming for someone else, sometimes you just have no idea what changing or deleting or commenting something out is really gonna do. Like, it's just, you have some really weird effects going on. Obviously DNA is significantly more complicated than that. So we don't know exactly how to read the language to know exactly what does what, and we don't know exactly what all is connected. But we were able to, again, through trial and error and research, figure out what was needed to kind of get this resistance in these mosquitoes. But we just don't know releasing them. Okay, now all these mosquitoes have this resistance, but is there something about their resistance or their lack of resistance that made them more nutritious for a certain, species that fed them? Like, it's just, this stuff's really complicated. It's almost like playing God in a way with this kind of technology. So CRISPR is just crazy though that we know it's working. We kind of understand really well how it works. We've already had it working in practice, and really at this point it's a matter of when are we gonna start doing this on humans? I know a lot of people listening probably be like, how, so when am I, we can enter genes, like when am I gonna get my blue eyes, or like, get my hair back and all that kind of stuff. It's just, I don't know, it's definitely some crazy technology, and there's just a huge ethical debate that kind of has to happen almost on a global scale, um, as to how, like, this technology is here, right? It's gonna influence our lives in some way. It's like at first it's gonna be pretty moderate, I believe. It's more gonna be like, okay, we have, because again, all this stuff is super complicated. So one of the difficult things is gonna be funding the research to essentially figure out what does what does what, so that you can reliably, because you don't want this shit to fuck up once you start doing it on yourself. You want to reliably be able to edit genes, which is what CRISPR allows you to do, but edit the right genes so that you reliably get the effect you're looking for, right? So you definitely want to be careful with this if you're going to be using it on humans, because like I said, you have to kind of research this and figure out what does what. So the first things that people are going to figure out is probably going to be things like, big diseases, maybe like Alzheimer's. That's how you say, I don't know. Whatever, however you say it, Alzheimer's. It's probably, hold on, let me mess with my mic a little bit. Is this loud? I feel like this, I definitely feel like it kind of spikes a little bit. So I'm just going to, so I can master on my mic a little bit, turn this down. Hopefully I'll get like a decent mic at some point. Can I? Does this? Okay, yeah, that does. Test. Okay, yeah, that should be good. What was I saying? yeah, so I don't know. It's just kind of, you have to, like, the things that are going to be researched first will probably be those big diseases. Obviously, being able to figure out a way to fuck cancer up would be awesome. Immunity to AIDS would be, they're kind of all STD. Can you imagine that? A point where we're literally have figured out the immunity to most at least sexually transmitted diseases and infections. Oh man, I mean, you'll see some wild shit then. I feel like, you know what I mean. It'd be, I think the '80s will get a little run for their for their money if that happens. Especially with like drugs, like weed and shit getting more like marijuana and immunity to sexually transmitted diseases probably means a lot more births. Like we gotta figure out how to have some control over the birthing or the fertilization process. I don't know how you scientifically refer to that. But yeah, either way, like I think that what was I saying? Like the niche, like just with CRISPR and kind of editing on humans, those are things that are gonna be figured out first. But don't get me wrong, we will for sure at some point start making, finding a way to change our eye color, change your hair color, probably change your skin color, you know, things like height and all. I don't know. I kind of have a theory. Let me go on a tangent for a little bit. I do have to figure out a name for what my random tangents are because I feel I'm gonna go on in a shit ton, and it'd be pretty dope to just be like, "Oh, I'm about to go on a Deion tangent," and just like little music in the background. Who knows? But either way, I have a theory because one of the biggest questions I have about this whole because look, I'll go back a tiny bit and go to the analogy I was using with the program, right? So imagine, let's say we have a very simple program. It's just I'll even say a program. I'll say like maybe a web page because maybe I think people are more familiar with like web based code and not like HTML, that kind of stuff. So imagine you have a web page, and on the web page you have a background color, you have some images maybe that are certain sizes, that kind of stuff. You basically want to edit those things, right? Hold on, give me a second. I feel like one thing I don't want to do is go on a tangent and then forget what I was gonna say, because that would be awful. So, okay, so at least I have that, so I fucking know what I was about to say. So, okay, so imagine you have the website, right? And you have like some small, so like background color, that kind of stuff. Oh no, let's say you just have background color. Make it super super easy. So your background color is, let's say, red, right? Everyone's gonna get angry about this being red. It's red, and it's been red from the beginning. Like from it was created, it's red. It's always been red, and now you've gotten access to this tool that allows you to change its color to blue, right? Or red, or any other possible, I'd say, spectrum of color that's physically possible. Like, there's probably a limit to this, but you could change the color. But of course, if you're doing on, say, something like a web page, if you ever kind of messed around with something like that, it happens instantly, right? You change the background to black, or to red, or to blue, or whatever. Change it, it changes instantly. Now, and that's kind of a very rough analogy for how CRISPR kind of works for our gene editing. So let's say you want to do something like back to kind of the point I was saying. So this is essentially my theory on how these, like the time these changes were coming, because that was kind of my question. I guess that's how I was starting it off. Is let's say I want to change my hair color, right? I'm a black guy, just typical black guy hair. Let's say I want to change my hair to be blonde, right? Um, through this gene editing process. How like how long does that take? Like, how like I'm not expecting my hair to instantly be blonde. That wouldn't make sense. Um, but it like if you change my genes so that my hair is blonde, technically that is just like it has to something has to happen, right? And saying like if you want to change your eye color through this gene editing process, if you're born with like brown eyes, you change it to blue. Like what? Like how does that even kind of work? And the thing is that this is specifically talking about um fully grown adults. The thing with gene editing is that it's most effective. I'm not even sure. Maybe it might not even be possible to do changes on full grown adults. I have no idea. But I do think it should be though, because people develop changes throughout their life and you can like say get like you can change like genders and stuff like that, get like hormone therapy, which I believe affects your genes as well. Because you have to be continually producing feminine stuff. Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna get deep into that 'cause I have no freaking idea. Definitely correct me on that, or tell me, explain to me, link me some articles on the whole transgender process and how that affects how it specifically relates to affecting DNA. But I forget what I was saying. But like about kind of like the eyes and the hair and stuff. You're changing your DNA, or if you can't change your DNA, you're wondering like how exactly those. Oh yeah, so I guess I can't remember what I was saying there for a second. Is like if you are changing the DNA of someone, it's best to do it when they're basically not born yet. If they're in the womb and still developing, and you change their genes, that's as far as I know when you get the most successful results. Potentially the only way it can even be done. So if you're someone who you're born somewhere where, well, I don't know, if the gene editing gets good enough, I'm assuming the gene reading process also gets better. So we'll probably be able to reach a point where we can tell your child's gonna have blue eyes before they're born. And then now you have a choice as to, okay, do you want to keep those blue eyes or change to green eyes? Right? I think that will be a very common scenario once this technology develops a little bit further. That's essentially what they kind of call like designer babies, I believe, where it's like you're directly in control of your baby. It's almost like a character creation screen for your baby. It's actually some really crazy and again really weird ethical discussions that kind of dive into there, but I'm kind of not diving into any of that right now. Probably maybe in a later podcast. But yeah, so it's like if you do that DNA editing process on an embryo, it should be rather effective. And I mean even things like changing their, I don't know if it's guaranteed or just changes the likelihood, but say changing like their height, maybe it's like, okay, they're very likely to be short, you can change it so they're very likely to be tall. Exactly how tall, maybe that's possible, but maybe not at first, maybe that's not possible at all. I'm really not sure. That's kind of what's exciting about it, is as we kind of dive more into it, we realize exactly how programmable our bodies actually are. And I think that will speak a lot to what we like, how we feel more about maybe like life and maybe like the soul and afterlife, that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think this is gonna be some really crazy stuff once this actually becomes more developed and more more widespread and accessible. I don't know, this feels like the kind of thing that could easily end up just in the hands of the very wealthy people, who can just, make their genes amazing so they get no wrinkled skin, they look amazing, they live super long, which are all things that are probably possible through. I'm not even gonna get into the craziness of DNA itself and the programmability in this, because that I think is ridiculous. But I'll try to stay somewhat on point with this because I do want to get to my actual theory some point soon. But yeah, so again, to reiterate my point, doing the stuff on developing children, assuming that gets through the ethical dilemmas that'll probably come up because of it. That I think is going to be simpler process. Probably all going to be complicated as fuck, but that's probably going to be a simpler process. However, and I mean, just to kind of finish that off nicely, it basically would mean that by the time the child is born, they're born with the genes, with the desired genes, essentially. So then they just grow into those desired genes. So that's kind of the main point why I feel that process, once we understand it more and it's reliable and that kind of stuff, and then obviously we might do stuff like how you get a flu shot when you're young and like that kind of stuff. It'd probably just be something like, oh, here's a typical gene editing package that all kids get that makes you resistant to all common diseases and makes sure your lifespan long. We probably have like a nice package that generally is recommended, maybe even forced. There's some real crazy discussions and things I feel is going to pop up when it's a matter of how frequently and exactly what is this technology is going to be used for. But anyway, it's like you'll probably get some kind of specific package or something like that will kind of extend certain things, and then you can maybe figure out what like specific stuff that you're looking for outside of that. So yeah, you'll get that kind of stuff, and when you're born, you will have what it is that you want to grow into, along like desired traits, and I think maybe even things like your IQ and like DNA. I don't think we know. We're just really starting to dive into the depths that DNA can really, or that DNA has to offer. But I think like it's gonna be crazy if we really figure out how, or that we are extremely programmable in that, every single thing about us is controlled and controllable through DNA. It'd be crazy. But essentially, what makes us human is that, and then it gets to like, okay, you change that, and then what the hell even are you, right? But anyways, so unborn children will be born, they'll grow into the desired traits or whatever. That's fine. What's interesting or kind of more complicated, I guess, is how do DNA changes affect a fully grown human that has the traits, right? You're already 5'4", as a 40-year-old man. You poor thing. I'm just joking, short's fine, everyone be confident, do your thing. But if you're already super short, for instance, you can't exactly just be tall, right? You can't just change, even if you change the genes to say you should be tall, technically your growing has stopped, right? Or they say, I don't know, there's just like guys stop growing at 21 and girls are like 18 or something. I don't know, but it's something like that. But yeah, so it's like you're not gonna just grow more vertebrae or some shit, or like your legs aren't just gonna stretch. Like, I don't know, stuff that affect your bone structure. I'm not sure if that's gonna even be possible after you stop growing. Although, it's kind of crazy, and this ties a little bit into this theory that I'm getting to. What if the act of stopping growth, say in males at 21, is also controlled through DNA, right? Would that not mean that, if possible, you could turn that back on so that your growth kickstart again. I mean, it's almost like with baldness, where baldness, growth is stopped in a particular area on your head. That's is controlled through DNA, right? I'm pretty sure you kind of know that's a hereditary thing. So it's just a DNA thing. It can be resolved through DNA, which means you're effectively kickstarting growth in these hair follicles. So does that mean you can kind of kickstart growth anywhere in the human body, assuming you know what you're doing or what to change? I don't know. I think that'd be crazy. Um, and there's another part of that I'll kind of touch onto in terms of the rate of growth that I think would probably be I haven't heard it specifically talked about. I gotta dive more into into these specific areas and see. But I've heard too much people talk about the rate of growth in humans, and if it's controlled through DNA, which it probably is, and if we can change that, which we probably can, how does that affect things? And then you're probably thinking like, oh well, wouldn't that just mean like you age faster? Well, maybe, but then there's even stuff about like you're starting to understand more what potentially could cause the aging process, and that might be controlled through DNA. So I mean, again, it's really, it's just, you never know how deep this DNA rabbit hole goes. You kind of just know it is deep. It's real deep. But anyway, so circling back, DNA editing in full-grown humans, how exactly would that even work, right? I think that probably it's gonna be something like, okay, so let's take an example. So I think I was using what was it, like your hair color? So yeah, okay, let's say, I have black hair. Let's say I want to make my hair blonde. I go in, I get my DNA change. Who knows what's gonna be? Injection, pill. I'm starting some radiation field for a few minutes. I have no idea how this stuff is gonna happen. But let's say I undergo the process, happen successfully. Okay, blonde hair. I'm a new blonde hair person. But what happens? Let's say at the same time I decide to change my eye color, right? Because I think there's gonna be one's easy, one maybe not. You change your eye color. Let's say my eye color is brown right now. Let's change my eye color to like gray or something random. How's it gonna work? Well, you ever heard this? I don't think it's a theory. I think it's actually pretty well founded in science at this point. But you ever heard that I don't know what it is, like every 5 years or something like that, you're essentially your body is composed of a brand new set of cells. So you know that your skin cells are always dying and falling off. Your hair is always growing and breaking off. Your nails always growing. Well, your whole body is always growing, right? Everything's technically always growing a little bit. Some things just grow faster than others, right? Even your hair, the hair maybe on your head grows faster than the hair on your face if you're a guy, or maybe it's like, the hair obviously on your legs and your arms doesn't grow nearly as fast or thick or dense as the hair on your head. Again, I think all controlled through DNA. So if anyone ever had a fetish of being like a wolf or like a furry, fluffy bundle of horror, maybe it might happen. It might be your time to shine. But things grow at different rates, right? So in the hair example, I feel that what's probably gonna happen is that all new hair that I would grow from the time that I got that DNA transplant or edit or whatever they'll kind of refer to it as, all new hair will now grow as blonde, right? So essentially, however long it would take for enough of my new hair to grow so that it's noticeable, it'd almost be like, when you dye your hair, or like if a chick dyes her hair, that dyes her entire hair, say blonde, but she's naturally like a redhead or something. Does that even look? That probably wouldn't. Is that a nasty combination? A redhead that's blonde. Actually, it'd be like blonde into, oh no, red into blonde. If it was blonde into red, that'd be dope. That's like a like sunset lion mane type shit. But then redhead into blonde, is that like, it's just like clown fest? I don't know. I don't know. Someone needs to let me know if there's a limit to hair colors I can just be mix and match. Regardless, if okay, let's say her hair's naturally black. Okay, jeez, just leave me alone. So specific. Um, if she's naturally had black hair, she dyes her hair blonde, and then all of her new hair that grows would be black, right? So you'd see all the base of her hair would just be black, and the rest of her hair would be blonde. I think it's the exact same process if you were to get your hair or your DNA changed. All new hair would be that color. Obviously, if you wanted like just blonde, well then I'll say if in using my example, if I wanted it to just be blonde, well then I just shave off all my black hair, and then all new hair should be blonde. I'm assuming that's how that would work. It's probably more complicated than that, right? There's probably like excruciating pain involved, or at least like itching. Why would it itch? It's not like like new hair. It's the same hair. It's just it's now been told to be a different color. It's just weird, like, because it kind of thinks that, is there a limit, right? Is there a limit to the pigments that my body can produce? You know, like, can I just have my hair be red? Like, can my body produce pigments in my hair to make it red? Or is there literally some, I don't know, you think so, right? It's like, if it's all controlled with genes, obviously you've seen those situations of like, you know, a black baby with like bright blue eyes, or like a blonde with like really red hair, like, you know, but like their parents are both blonde, or, you know, something like that. Like, crazy shit's possible by chance. And effectively what this CRISPR thing is doing is allowing us to take control of it, right? And to actually make these changes intentionally, and without maybe side effects that we don't know could actually come. Maybe not with the hair, but like, you know, there are side effects that could come with DNA changes. We might be able to have the positive changes omitting any negatives. So I don't know, but that's what I'm wondering, is that, is it possible for our bodies to produce pigments of a wide variety of colors if instructed to, essentially through DNA, or is there actually a limit? Like, I cannot just create green hair. Right? It's just, I don't. I mean, maybe you just eat a crap ton like celery or something, and it's like, yeah, just finally give me an excuse to eat vegetables. No, I would run. Like, green hair would be awful. But Super Saiyan hair, oh, imagine like gold, not like blonde, like crisp brown blonde. I can't rock that shit. But like gold, like freaking, you know, real Vegeta angry type hair, not the spikes and shit, but just, you know, the hue, saturation, the warmth. I don't know. Is yellow? Yeah, yellow's a warm color, right? It's in the warm spectrum color wheel. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I that's the thing. I just want to like screw. There was a point where I was like, I want to know what the next phone or the next game console coming out's gonna be, because that shit's gonna be fucking lit. Now I'm like, like, next phones are only like $2,000, barely any, and like, fuck that shit. You know, it's like fingerprint reading. Now I get into face recognition, which it's like not much better. Next would be like nipple reading. It's like, oh, you know, just put these 2 electrodes on your nipples and plug it into what used to be the headphone jack, but now we replaced it with this nipple reader. Because screw you, you know, it's just And you have to buy it for like $2 extra, but can't get in your phone if you don't. So it was probably Apple doing this. If you did, no, I'm not a fan of Apple. But bias aside, I don't know. But the point is that this change can happen, right? You can change my DNA to tell my frickin' skull to produce blonde hair. We just don't know what happens when you do it. Does it just obey obediently, or does my liver explode? My liver probably isn't gonna explode. Well, it might. I might just be like so angry at my decision to get blonde hair. I just drink my liver into the ground or some shit. But although the whole thing with it though is that you would think if you can tell. In fact, I probably wouldn't even do this if you couldn't, to be honest, because it's kind of, I don't do this with actual programming type stuff. There has to be a way to undo it, right? If you can tell my hair to be blonde, you could probably tell it to get its ass back black again, right? So I don't know, if as long as that's an option, is there really a side effect as long as there is no excruciating pain or anything like that? I don't know. But, and again, that's the hair example. So the hair example seems relatively simple because, I grow new hair all the time. Hair is one of the things that don't really stop growing. I mean, obviously, again, you could have like balding issues, receding hairline, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I believe all that we'll be working on probably curing that kind of stuff either before or alongside things like changing hair color, right? I mean, people will probably, you probably get a lot more money out of people paying to have a full bushy head of hair like back in the 80s or some shit, relive their prime days, or grant people that never had that, because again, that's probably just good genes, right? So what the fuck is good genes if I can just get any genes? It's, if anything, it's not going to be good genes. It's going to be expensive genes. It's going to be fucking, rich guy genes. That fucking black credit card genes, if you know what I'm saying. But like, so I don't know, I think that those things will probably be worked on first. But again, it just comes back to the question, it is possible what's gonna happen. So again, the hair, that's just gonna be a matter of how long it takes for the new hair to grow. But then it's the eye color though. How does that work? Right? Like, how, if I change my eye color from brown to blue, what happens? Well, that's why I was kind of mentioning earlier that whole thing about, let me get a sip of this here. That's why I was mentioning earlier about however long it takes. It doesn't even matter the time, as long as it's within a reasonable amount of time. Like, say, within 10 years, something like that. Most, if not all, of the cells in your body are new, fresh cells. Even, your brain, your heart, these cells renew themselves, albeit, again, at much slower rates. So things like the brain cells and the heart cells, and who knows what other cells your body, cells are really, really long lasting, I guess you could say. Those take a lot longer to regenerate, or to, be replaced, I should say, die and be replaced by newer cells, but they do happen. It does happen at some point. So, same with your eyes, right? Your eyes are, let's say we give it the amount like 10 years, your eyes are composed of completely different cells every 10 years. Not saying it is, but just, if this theoretically say it was. What that would mean is that if I got my eye color changed, all new the iris is the colored part, right? I'm pretty sure the iris is the colored part for my like grade 10 biology days. I fucking hated biology, man. I hated biology. I like learning about biology type stuff, but it's just a boatload of memorization and like weird names that people are obviously stoned off some shit. Fucking, it was like, I'm gonna name this freaking, photosynthesis. And it's like, well, what is that? Well, actually, photosynthesis probably actually has I'm gonna get like, photosynthesis means this, like, photo is sun, and synthesis is like this what this is. But you know what I mean? It's just, some of the shit's just some weird ass names. And yeah, I don't spend my livelihood remembering other people's shit. Unless I also get to make up some stuff. But I'd at least make it like, it's like, bull monkey. Oh, what is a bull monkey? It can't be, oh, it actually is a monkey that looks like a bull. Yeah, because I named shit what it fucking looks like, right? It's like, why? Oh. Anyway, but back to the genes. It's like the eye, essentially, however long it takes for the iris of your eye, the cells, the pigment cells that make, or the pigments in the cells, I think that's the correct way to say it, that make up your iris, all new cells that are produced will be of this blue color. So I actually think you'd see the transition, because I don't think that there's a pattern or any consistency to what cells get replaced first, like die off and all that. So you literally just see at some point this like mixture, at least this is all theory, I'm just assuming, but at least you say I'm on record saying this, if that's actually what happens. You'd see a mixture of like the blue and the brown mixed in my eyes, and you would see that transition, and slowly the blue would take over, become more prominent. Would the blue completely, like 100% take over the brown? I don't know, right? I have no idea how perfect our, like, even if we give our bodies the perfect programming, I don't know if our bodies will just perfectly obey it, right? It might literally be that in addition to the DNA changing, I also have to take, like, say, external eye drops to, I don't know, like, directly apply more DNA changing shit directly to the eye, and it's like, however good I do that determines how well the end result. Like, it might not be as simple, and probably isn't going to be as simple as just, change the code in the DNA, boom, you got blue eyes in like a couple of years. But I like to think so. I'd hope so. It'd be elegant if, as wonky as everything seems, it's just this really nice underlying. Well, it's not very nice at all, because apparently, from what I read in some places, where it's saying, some studies are showing up to, I think it's like 90% of our DNA might be just useless junk, right? And it's like, only maybe around 10% of our DNA is actually usable or necessary for, everything that makes us, like the creation of all of our, like our entire body structure, our behavior, all our diseases, potentially, all that stuff could be contained within just 10% of our actual DNA. And I know it'd be kind of weird, but I actually saw someone make a really good, I think maybe it was the same person on the article or on the paper or whatever, making this point, is that there's a decent amount of stuff, especially in the early, if you think about like when we were from the single and like early multicellular days of our evolution, we were exposed to a decent amount of sunlight, right? And that sunlight can cause skin cancer, but really it just damages DNA. That's what the sunlight does. The radiation, like I think it's the energy from the photons, hits your DNA with such force that it essentially rips it apart. And that damage is what can lead to things like skin cancer. But if you think about that, what would kind of be the best defense to, because all this stuff happens at random, it's not like the sun is like 360 no scope and just like completely no scopes the part of your DNA that's responsible for that then leading to skin cancer. It's all random. So if your DNA is randomly getting hit and damaged, what would be the best way to defend against that? Decoy DNA, right? Effectively, you just toss out a bunch of like random fake DNA out there, and when you get hit, it's like, oh no, oh dear, oh, I got hit. But then realistically, it was just like, some like piece of trash over there. It's like responsible for making like your farts like smell worse or some shit. It's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. So whatever, it's like that. I don't know. It's one of the things that logically, and I kind of had that a lot throughout the podcast, is my application of logic to things, and as an initial way for validation. A lot of times when things logically make sense, it's kind of because they do, at least based off the information you currently have. I'm always getting new information, always updating my new opinions, evolving my opinions, but logic is kind of a good starting point. Logically, it makes sense. And it doesn't have to be like, 90% is garbage, but even if like 50% of our DNA was not necessary to the answering, it's not like it isn't used at all. It's just, it's not necessary to the core functions of life, which means that it's not going to lead to catastrophic failure of like organs. It's not going to lead to things that you need malforming, or like your heart being like weaker than like stuff like that, right? It does make sense to have some decoy DNA. And again, it's just stuff like that. We don't know if that's true. It's just a theory. So imagine if you're trying to decipher some, ancient language in a book that you just aren't really sure what they're actually saying, but you're getting it little by little because you're learning like what the letters and symbols mean, and you're being able to identify stuff. But then there's a chance that 90% of the book could actually just be trash garbage words, and there's actually only 10% of the book that is meaningful for what you're trying to do, or it could be 50%, or it could be like 39%, who knows? But all these little things are what makes even though we have something that can edit DNA, so I'm just like, if you're like snapping, I'm getting used to the whole podcasting stuff, so still like messing around with objects that make noise. I always like to fiddle, the whole like fidget spinner phase that popped up, that pissed me off. But it wasn't for the same reason as most people would think. I actually liked fidget spinners, but hear me out. I know you're just like, just face palm, like, how could you? Use the guy at my work just flicking this thing at 100 revolutions per minute. Just no, it's like the whole thing is that a fidget spinner is supposed to be designed for fidgeting, right? And the whole concept of fidgeting, at least as I understand it, is supposed to be, not everyone, but for some people, they concentrate better by having something in their hand to just play or fiddle with. So, some people might have like a pencil or a pen, or maybe they just naturally pick up, a stapler or something. For me, it was always like I wear these kind of bands on my hand, and each of them kind of have their own memory or whatever attached to them. But another good thing is that literally if I didn't know what to do, or if I was talking and needed to fiddle, I always had something available to fiddle with. I was fiddling with shit from I was the youngest of child. I always had a bag filled with like a dozen pens. I just would like collect off the ground and shit, because like you lose them just as fast as you get them. Like I always had all these pens, and it's like I would always have something in my hand fiddling with, to the point where before I'm not trying to pull like a whole hip to like, I was doing it before it was cool, even though I kind of was, but I'm not, but before the whole fidget spinner thing popped up, there's this company I'm based in Canada. I'm actually in Waterloo, Ontario. This company called, look it up real quick just to make sure. I believe it's called Forever Spin. Let me check this real quick. I think it's in Toronto. Yeah, so Forever Spin. They basically sell what are really, really premium tops, right? They're like tops that are made out of various metals, so like titanium, 24 karat gold, platinum. I think there's one that's platinum and silver. It's like brass, copper, and they all have these kind of playful names. I'll actually go on. I am not associated with them at all, but I'm the kind of person to believe that I don't really want to ever shove a product in your face. But if there's a product to use that's actually decent, I think it's fine just talking about it, right? Because that's your testimony. It's not like, oh, I'm a shill, just shilling out for this company. No, it's like I enjoy this shit, and although I mean I understand people who they gotta make the money, gotta make the bills or whatever, right? But where the frick? Okay, so gallery. So it's foreverspin.com and what the hell, gallery. Oh no, not gallery. I want store. That would be better. So yeah, so they have like titanium, gold, stainless steel, like cast iron, magnesium. This is cool one that's like Damascus steel. It's like a cloudy steel effect. Tungsten's really good. But basically the cool thing about them is just they're not made to be tops. They do spin, and they spin really well. And each material kind of has its own spinning quality and stuff like that too. But they're really good for just having something in your hand, and it's just something nice about the cool feeling of metal in your hand that you can just like fiddle with, spin around. I was really bad initially when I got it for dropping it, and it's made up like I got the what did I get? Copper. They get copper or bronze? Brass. Oh, a brass. I think I got the brass one. Because I don't know. You ever smell brass? Brass is yeah. Yeah, it's a smell. It's kind of like yeah, kind of like that smell. But so I got the brass one, and it's heavy. So like I'd just be filling it with it in my hand, and it would drop all the time, and like it was like carpet when I was working before. But you'd hear it, it'd be like thud. Like I'd be like talking, and like leading meetings and shit, and it's just like thud. And I was so used to picking it up, and like 2 minutes later, thud. But I don't know. It's just so anyway. Before the whole fidget spinner thing came about, I had that, and before that, I had just pens and random shit. Like fiddling is a real thing for people, me included, where it's beneficial to just have something in your hand to twirl around. Albeit, if you do, you probably don't want it to be so heavy that if you drop it on tile, it's literally gonna like crack shit or something. Like, but the spinning was fun too, but not exactly appropriate in a workplace. Anywho, so that's my small tangent on the fiddling, but that's just why the whole fidget spinner thing just pissed me off because it's like I actually like I got a fidget spinner and I kid you not, I had it like everywhere I went. It was bad. I had to like walk to the store nearby that's like 5-10 minutes away. And I just had my fidget spinner and just be twirling it to the point where like my the fingernail on my left hand was like hurting because I was always like flicking it at the highest RPM. But like I don't know, it's just a thing where I wouldn't notice it, which is the whole point. You're supposed to just have it zone out. But I understood that it's terribly annoying and noisy because it's literally like metal bearings spinning. So I would never like be in work or crowded place doing it. It'd always be home or if I'm working on shit. Um, but I don't know. It's a shame that they got such a negative connotation because every little freaking kiddie in high school had to get it and annoy the hell out of their teachers and all that shit with it. But anyway, what was I even saying? Oh, these tangents. I gotta have a name. I 100% I'm gonna be going on ridiculous tangents. Um, so please don't get mad if I end up glossing over some stuff or that. But I want to make that thing. I don't know, like just because I feel my tangents are decent. Like they're, you know, I don't go on tangents that. No, I probably do. I go on shitty tangents. But regardless, I think my tangents can provide some additional value and insight. It's like throwing in a little bonus clip when you buy like DVD. Little, like 3 extra DVDs in the pack. Get an extra 3 hours of content. It's the real day ones, the hardcore fans. Okay, but I don't know. I was saying I was talking about CRISPR and like the whole. I definitely hadn't like finished up with that. I was just talking about the whole wrapping up the theory with eyeballs and shit. The eye color would essentially take as long as it takes for the cells in your eye to be replaced by new ones for your eye color to change. And I think that goes for most things. Like your skin is always changing. Again, it's gonna be weird at first when you're like transitioning, I guess it'd be. So, oh, I have, you know, typically white skin, and then I'm transitioning to, I don't know, like much more like tanned naturally skin. And it's just a point where your skin's just like blotchy with, I don't know, it's gonna be, I don't know how this stuff is gonna work. And then this kind of ties in nicely with that point I was making before, that this is where things get actually really interesting and potentially fucked up and dangerous, right? So, okay. So that's the whole theory I have about how, essentially your body is always replacing new cells. So if you're making a change, I won't dive right now into things like your height or thing. Like I said earlier, I think anything to do with bone structure is probably gonna have to be pre-birth, unless like maybe with the addition of surgeries it might be fine. But I don't think just pure genetic engineering, like muscles is fine. You could get like denser muscles, thicker muscles, stronger muscles, happier muscles. I don't know, all the adjectives, the positive adjectives. So you could get that through genetic engineering or modification of your DNA. But things like bone structure. So I'll stay away with bone structure, but that's my theory for how I believe that the changes for things that will be. So, I guess to kind of wrap it up in a more neat way, any parts of your body that change rapidly or rapidly changing, so things like your hair, your nails, your potentially eyes, that kind of stuff, I think those will happen quickly and will be simpler. Those will be the first things we figure out when it comes to designer type changes. However, like I mentioned before, there's no reason to believe or to not believe that the speed at which your eye, like say the pigments in your eyes, or the speed at which your hair grows. Because, I had some people back when I was in high school that, like in grade 8 and 9, these motherfuckers have like a full beard and mane. And, like, I kid you not, they're like coming into school fully shaved and they have like a 5 o'clock shadow at like 3 p.m. It doesn't even like make sense. It's like so but then me, and I remember when I got my first strand, like my first strand of hair on my beard. Like now I'm more working on a freaking full patch type thing at this point. I at least got the goatee down pack. My goatee is coming in thick and full, but the sides are just taking their slow time. So, but yeah, I remember like my first strand of hair. So, but that's just a genetic thing, right? He just has genes that makes him a freaking wolf guy, and I had the baby face, the baby face genes. So, who says we can't make that switch, right? You can't have it so that I get some of that hairy full chin goodness. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think I think that like that change, being able to like, stuff like that is in the DNA as well. And kind of getting back to that main point, the speed at which things grows. If the hair changes can be that drastic, and some people can like their height, like shorter than me, and in 2 years it just spring up, and I just stopped growing. I had like my god brother who I was always like huge to them. And then it's like I stopped growing. 'Cause I was always like maybe a few years, like maybe 4-ish years older than them. And now I'm pretty sure one of them's taller than me, which is crazy because like we have the same, like he's younger than me, so he got taller than me earlier. You know what I mean? But again, that just has to be genes. At least I feel that's a gene thing. I kind of feel that's a gene thing, right? So anyway, I definitely feel that if that's a gene thing, and we can figure that out, it means that not only can we possibly do things like change your hair color or change your eye color, but you can also change the speed or the pace at which that happens. And there's probably going to be limits, right? You're probably not going to be able to have your eye color just change overnight. Why? One of the big reasons is that we got to remember all of this isn't magical. This is all rooted in science. So, and like that's biology and chemistry, all the good trio, all that stuff, chemistry. So there is a biological, probably chemical, probably a little scientific too, process going on here that it has to abide by the rules of nature. So like I touched on a tiny bit before, we have a very, very little understanding of how the aging process works, but we're looking into it, and what's crazy is that if we find a point where genes are really just a matter of almost a code-like thing, and they have code-like properties, we're transplanting genes between animals and somehow being able to remove potentially unwanted side effects as possible, there are creatures that already exist that essentially have things like immortality figured out. So, we're literally just going to be looking around the planet like, what are all the best traits all these animals have? And we're just pulling them into our body. And again, who knows what we're going to look like when we pull in, like, the immortal lobster genes here and a little bit of a freaking, ant strength genes here and some freaking pig sex stamina genes here. So those fuckers, they go all day and all night. Or is it? No, it's lions that go all day and all night. The pigs are the ones that orgasm for like 30 minutes. I mean, yeah, we'll toss that in there too, but like, but anyway, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just gonna be a mash of all these things, but, it's just trying to figure out how, if things are really gonna be, like that, then it's really just figuring out how I kind of lost my initial train of thought though. I was talking about kind of, the importance of these coming of having this kind of changeability between the genes and that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, I remember what I was talking about. So basically, it just comes down to the fact that this process is having to abide by the laws of biology means that your eye changing color, if it works even somewhat similarly to how I described in terms of it being based on the replication rate of the cells in your eye, right? We have a very small understanding of aging, but what we do know is that every time your cells divide, they get a little bit worse. They just get a little bit more worn down, a little bit not as good. And there are some specific areas we're looking at. I think it's something called like telomeres or something like that, or like the caps on these telomeres. I don't know, something like that, where essentially every time a cell replicates, it appears they get a tiny bit shorter. And they might not be the only reason. Aging is a complicated thing, but they seem to maybe shorten these caps that are shortening on, I think it's like a chromosomes or something like that, might be leading to some of the issues that result as, damage in cells and as ultimate result aging. So this process is probably going to be based, if my assumptions are correct, on the division of cells. If we can actually control the speed at which cells divide in order to allow changes that we make to appear more rapidly, does that mean that we're effectively aging? That I don't even know if we could do something like just increase the speed at which the cells in your eyes are replenished. Maybe, maybe. Or maybe you have to have your entire body to get that. In which case, I mean, it's fine. I'm pretty sure we'll work out, like as a society, if this does become something that is accessible to mainstream, we'll work out how this happens. If that's the case, then we'll probably do something where you do changes in bulk. So I just do like 5 changes at one time, do this thing where all of my body's cells are replenishing at a heightened rate, and then the changes like my hair color, my eye color, my wrinkles or lack of, maybe my skin is not as dry or something. Like, who knows, right? My nails are like higher quality. Who knows? But do all that in bulk, and then all that comes in at once. If we can control, the rate at which your nails grow, then yeah, you can just make changes for your nails and then have those go faster. But are you aging your nails quicker at the same time? Logically speaking, I would think so. Right? It's like, effectively, what I'm understanding is that there's just a limit to how often cells can divide. Like a hard cap, a hard number to how often cells can divide. If you speed up that rate, then yeah, you're speeding up the rate at which the cells reach that number, that ceiling. Now, does that ceiling have to be static? I mean, we don't know, but probably not, right? Will we have that figured out in time when all this crazy stuff I'm talking about is potentially possible? Maybe, right? I think it'd be smart to do that. But actually, I'm not gonna really touch that at all because these episodes are actually getting rather long than I thought of my first podcast would be. But hey, it's a good sign, right? Can ramble on long enough. But I'll just touch on this really quickly. I believe personally that probably one of the most important things we should be aiming towards, like pushing towards as a society, as humanity, is finding ways to extend the life of humans, right? Like things just happen, things in the universe, things on Earth, things happen at a rate that's just so much slower than what our current lifespan is. Like even up to 100 years on average is still just, there's just, you need to get a nice long, especially if we're like, obviously things on Earth in our local environment, you'd be like, oh, what, like things aren't, seasons are a year or happens within a year. That's pretty quick. The tides happen like every 6 hours. Like there's a lot of quick processes going on, sure, but once you start getting to the point where as a species we're kind of getting, it's like evolving to the next level, especially when it comes to things like space travel. I think you've got best technology. It'll take like months just to get to Mars. It's gonna take years probably to get to the planets on the outer solar system, just even visit them. It's just we need a lifespan to the point where a year is like nothing. A year is just not that much. So you could go on a trip that takes 5 years, because even a round trip of 10 years isn't that bad if you live for 250 years, for instance, right? Even if you live 150 years, and it's not even living 150 years too, it's more, and this is where the gene editing along with this, and that's why I kind of touched on a little bit, ties in so nicely. It's extending the average lifespan of the human, but also extending the overall period of time at which we could operate at full efficiency, right? You know how we kind of like hit our prime, they say like in our 30s, 40s kind of thing, and then I think once you're like in late 20s, like 30, you're already starting to go downhill effectively. But if we could get to the point where as a race we could get to, even if it takes longer to get there, I'm perfectly fine if genetic engineering, along with other things like maybe nutrition changes as a society or whatever, creates it so that it takes, 20 years before you're mature, so to speak, right? So effectively you stay in a youthful state, a very youthful state for longer. But then you live to be like 150, and of that, from age like say 30 to 80 or 100 is prime. Like you're healthy, you can do stuff, you can, assuming that, we can get rid of other issues that might limit you through probably genetic engineering primarily as well. And again, nutrition, that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think that's, if we aim for that, a lot of other stuff becomes, I feel, easier because you have a greater collective of intelligent and functional minds and people that are available in every generation on average, right? Like imagine if Einstein, because what Einstein, like when did Einstein die? Let me look this, check this out real quick. Albert, I don't know how you spell his last. That's freaking ridiculous name, but ridiculous spell last name. He died. Yeah, this dude died in 1955. It hasn't been 100 years since Einstein has died. I thought it was a lot later, man. Jeez. It hasn't even been 100 years. So imagine if Einstein was still alive today in, his prime, or at least, even if he was at the point of today's 60 or 70-year-old, like, shit, my dad's like 70. Dude has like so much energy, is active. I mean, sure, he has some issues that just comes with being alive 7 fucking decades, but you know what I mean? It's like, even if he had that, but he was currently, I don't know how old he'd technically be, like, but let's say he was like, 150 or 170, but he's at the point of today's 70-year-old. I don't know. But anyway, I won't dive too deep in that because, like I said, that's probably multiple podcasts, multiple episodes, just diving into, and that's what's going to be really exciting about this, is diving into a lot of these topics that I've touched on and seen stuff, but diving in and researching it so that I can then bring it to a podcast and break down what I've learned and maybe even have some discussions with people. That'd be pretty cool, actually. But yeah, so just I'll probably continue a lot of this gene stuff in a future episode. I didn't know this was gonna go this long, honestly, but I don't know. It's really cool. It'd be really cool just to see where this gene editing stuff goes. And it'd be cool to see how right or wrong I am with some of this stuff, some of these theories, right? Because that's what I want to do. Is that I really feel I have a interesting mindset at looking at things, even if I don't know drastically a lot about it. I'm a very logical person, and I'm able to kind of break down what information is there, what information I know and I learn, and make these, not really theories, but just these assumptions grounded in, logic that I can discuss and discuss, defend, that kind of stuff. And a lot of times I end up being right, just because, things can logically end up making sense. And this was really going to be crazy stuff. And I started diving into things like, space and life on other planets and multiple dimensions. There's a lot of shit that I'd like to just dive into. I just rattle off on what I think the hell's really going on and see what you guys think. I want to see how you feel about some of these things. I'm sure other people have similar thoughts and other as crazy or maybe even crazier thoughts. So I'd love to hear what people think about this. But yeah, so that's kind of CRISPR in a nutshell. But it wasn't exactly a deep dive into it. It's really just around the gene, like what what is not really even the consequences, right? That's almost a separate thing. It's just what are some of the practical ways that gene editing could actually be done and actually happen. So, like I said, that's kind of my thoughts for it. Definitely look up CRISPR. It's an amazing thing, amazing technology, and just look into what we know about DNA and what's there. And what's really cool, I haven't done it before, but just kind of wrapping this up. There are multiple services available now that allow you to do DNA sequencing. Basically, it's like, you'll send you a Q-tip and a test tube. You'll do, some kind of oh no, you'll just like spit on it. What am I saying? Making it way too long. You just spit on it, toss it in there, send it back to them, and basically from your spit they extract your DNA and they're able to look in and they give you a huge report. I think it's like multiple pages, maybe like a 10, 20-page report that tells you things about like your heritage, what like based off of all the thousands or tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of DNAs that they've sequenced, patterns that you match for like hereditary diseases or certain traits, maybe even like personality traits. I think they can get really deep into what basically makes you you. And I really want to do it because for me, it's almost like you really get a good understanding of what's actually driving you. Right? At the end of the day, sure, you make a lot of choices, you have free will, but there's just certain things that it's like, I'm a naturally calm person. I don't put in drastic effort to be naturally calm. That's just, for me, naturally the better route to handle things. Some people are just not that way. And that is not through dedicated, intentional effort. That's just in your genes. So I really wanna do that. It's like, I think anywhere from like 150 to 200 plus bucks. So not crazy expensive, but I definitely wanna do it and just see, I wanna know about me. So if I do it, which I will at some point, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go through and then I'm going to probably just do a podcast where I just go through it together with you. I talk about, maybe some interesting stuff I learned, maybe there's some stuff there. And essentially, I guess the main thing is just, I wouldn't really tell you have to go do it. If you want to, like, look it up. If you want to do it, definitely. What I'll do is I'll do it, and I'll just let you know, do I feel it's worth it based off of the information that I get back. It's almost like kind of a review. So, look forward to that. I'll do that at some point. And yeah, so let me know how you feel about this CRISPR technology, about the future of it, and just the future, like, what do you feel the future of gene editing as a whole holds, if that makes sense? Like, what's in the future for the human race once we have mastered the ability to change our gene at will? Let me know. I want to know. Let's have a discussion about it. So, thanks again. This was, I don't really have a name yet, kind of jumping in with this. So, yeah, for now, I'll just kind of leave it up in the air. I mean, that's good. I'll just call it the Deion Farrington. Yeah, I didn't even introduce myself. How rude am I? Listening to me for, what, that's good. I'll probably just do an introduction and then splice that introduction at the front. Yeah, I'll do some editing stuff. Again, amateur hour. I'll figure all this stuff out. But hey, at least you kind of see. I want to leave all this in, leave it raw, so you can see. I want to see too what my process was like when I started, and then hopefully 100, 200 episodes later, look back and be like, man, I was shit. Well, fuck you, Mr. Deion from 200 episodes, 199 episodes from now. Anyway, my name is Deion. Why am I saying things? I'm gonna introduce myself at the beginning. Such a noob. Anyway, thanks for listening. Yeah, I'll just call it the Deion Farrington show for now, I guess. And if I come up with a better name, Deion Farrington podcast, because this is not on television, and I have no video. Just audio. Anyway, thanks for listening, and yeah, I'll see see you in the next episode.